Bag, let's start the fucking show, huh?
This is the sound of A moment like this changes everything. It invents possibilities. It creates a better tomorrow. It redefines what it means to live today. And it almost never happens by chance.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the No Name Pod with me and Wasted. I'm joined, once again, by my good friend Wasted. Wasted, it's been a while. How are you? Perfect. How you doing, buddy?
Fine. Same old. I'm
it's
covered in beer.
Nice. Is that your first one of the day?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, it's off to a good start. It's been a while since we've done a show. Stuff's been going on. You know, we both have lives outside of this podcast, and sometimes it gets in the way. There's some stuff going on with me. Man, it just seemed to snowball out of nothing into this big giant thing, and then all of a sudden I was busy and I didn't have any time to do anything. And I forgot a show with you. You were waiting for me, and I forgot. And you texted me, "Where are you?" So I apologize. But we're here now, and we're going to do a cool show tonight. We've got a couple things planned. Let's see. We got a couple topics. We usually focus on one topic, but we're gonna have a big topic tonight. But I'm gonna talk about two little things at the very beginning and at the very end. The first thing I want to touch upon, because it's brand new and it's probably one of my favorites. Well, not probably, but it is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. Because I love them, it's Bigfoot. And there was a new Bigfoot video this week where these passengers on a train filmed him. Did you see it, Wasted?
Yeah, I saw the picture. It's a kind of camouflage, Bigfoot camouflage, full camo.
So yeah, it was. They were in California, and they were, like I said, I think they were on their some kind of passenger train, and he had his phone out, and they were filming the scenery on the outside, and the guy's like, "Oh, look, I got something." And you focus in on it, you see this Bigfoot walking, and then he crouches down, and he kind of camouflages into the scenery there, into the backdrop, and you can hear people talking about it. There's a couple different angles. I saw a couple different angles of the same shot, so obviously from two different cameras. two different reactions of people. The reactions seem authentic. So, and to me at least, I mean, that Bigfoot looks. Obviously you're skeptical when you hear about a new Bigfoot video coming out and everything, and I was skeptical too, obviously, until I saw, and it's going to sound funny, but until I saw his arms. His arms were basically down to his kneecaps, right? So there's a lot of intriguing elements to the video. I think it might be real, but then again, I think it might not be real. But I want it to be real. How do you feel?
Well, it looks kind of convincing that it could be something, but it's also like, why is he, he's kind of blended into the background? I don't know much about the Bigfoot. Are they actually like, do they have like human brains? Like, would they be sort of hiding out, or would they just be wandering around aimlessly?
So, I guess from what we know, I would say is that they're kind of a humanoid cryptid. Basically, the missing link. I've been heard that they've been referenced as the missing link between man and ape, therefore solidifying the theory of evolution, right? That indeed come from apes. I heard that they're intelligent enough that they fear us. I've also heard that they're very aggressive towards humans, and there's documented cases of Bigfoot coming into camps, whether it be the natives that were there or the settlers that have come afterwards, and Bigfoot coming in and kidnapping children or people out of their camps. So I think they're smart enough to understand that we're here, and I think they avoid us. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, it seems like that's why they're in the woods.
Right.
In the first place. But this one, what I mean is this one's like in a field. Isn't it like a field of corn or straw or something? Like it's all yellow.
Yeah, it's almost kind of deserty kind of. And that's where it gets a little skeptical, right? Is what's he doing out there? Usually the pictures of Bigfoot are in heavily dense forested areas or close to it. And you're right. So one of the theories I heard to debunk it was this train passes through this area where there's a Bigfoot kind of expedition or like a Bigfoot company that operates out there to go on tours or something, and that the owner of this Bigfoot company often dresses up in a Bigfoot suit and walks around to drum up interest for his company. Now, he hasn't taken responsibility for this yet. And from what I understand, he usually makes it clear that it's him, right? So he hasn't taken responsibility for it. Does that mean it wasn't him? Of course not, no. But if anything, that's where the people who are trying to say this is a hoax, that's where they seem to be going.
Because are they on a train when they're taking the picture? Or is that
yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
He's sort of like going in. He's sort of like, if he is doing that, then he wants to be seen. So he's going up by this rail track where he knows passenger trains are going to come past.
That's right.
But that doesn't mean that it isn't like. But I was trying to think, like, why would this Bigfoot be like stalking the train tracks? He's just like interested in the, and he just like hanging around in the, the grass, in the sort of hay or straw or desert.
Well, that's what I was thinking, right? So let's for a second assume that this is a real Bigfoot. Did he just get caught like out of position and the train kind of crept up on him unbeknownst to him, and that's just him trying to get away? Because you notice that you can see him walking, but as soon as he crouches, he like blends right in. So I don't know. What do you think?
Some sort of like a Bigfoot train spotter.
Maybe.
He's trying to see all these different trains. I mean, they've got to have a hobby. They can't just spend the entire life just wandering around a forest. Maybe he found a way to make it more interesting. I don't know. 'Cause I
By
don't even
train
know.
spotting.
Yeah, well, just find something more interesting than forest. There's also,
True.
how can you, the train goes past, nobody can really get to you. So you can hang around in the, I don't know what he's observing then. Observing these trains go past. It must be more interesting than normally they're just ambling through a forest, aren't they? They're almost like cavemen.
Yes.
So this one seems like he's in like Spies Like Us or something. Like he's like John Candy, he's like in camo, like trying to like take over a train or something, stalking the train. But I suppose if you were like that guy who's like maybe accused of faking it, that's one of like the corn circles in the UK. Like maybe one of the corn circles was real at the beginning or something, but then the farmers started faking them to charge people, like $1 to go into the field to see. So if you didn't have a corn circle on your land, you couldn't make money off it. So it ended up being loads of them. But I'm not sure if they ever proved the first one, maybe like a hurricane, or was it an alien craft like landing? I don't know. But they definitely found people and caught people going into the fields at night and making them themselves.
They did,
with,
yeah.
Springs. They got more and more complicated.
That's a whole other topic for another show, because yes, they had these people that were doing them, and yes, they had these people that admitted to doing them, and they demonstrated how they did them, but they like you just said, they've gotten so intricate and detailed that I find it hard to believe that these people who are still doing this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's the same kind of thing with the Bigfoot. If the guy is faking it, going in camo is maybe not the best way to convince people that there's a Bigfoot there.
Or maybe the Bigfoot's real and he's a foamer. Do you know what a foamer is? A foamer is like a train. It's a derogatory term for a train enthusiast.
Yeah,
a rail fan or yeah.
An anorak. They you see some guy with like really thick glasses on the standing in the rain in an anorak, and they're like waiting, and you're like, what are you doing? And then the train comes past and they've got this book and they write down the number. So they're trying to collect all the numbers of every train in the area. Just no different from collecting records or something, maybe.
No.
But it's just a little bit sadder. They just don't look that cool because they're wearing like an anorak.
I work with a guy who's a train enthusiast, and I've spoken to him about it a few times, and like it's an odd obsession, and he's a super nice guy. I'm not saying anything bad about the guy. He's one of my friends at work. It's a very odd obsession because you can get him talking on. He has his own YouTube channel and stuff, and you can get him talking on it, and you can just see the enthusiasm coming off of him and coming through him as he starts talking about it. He just loves it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a part of it, like all the steam trains and the old locomotives, and there's all these different,
absolutely,
Trans-Siberian Express, the Oriental Express. It starts to get interesting, and all the mechanics of it, but just purely collecting all the numbers of the basic, commuter trains. The two carriages that go between these two towns, to complete this kind of number sequence. That's something else. That's like when I started collecting Coke cans. Every time you collect a Coke can, you put it on your shelf, and after a year, I had 200 of them. I was like, this has to end. I've got to get rid of these.
What was the purpose for Coke cans? I mean, they don't have a serial number on them. They all look the same.
I know. I just thought, well, no, they have slight differences. There was the super can in the UK, like a 750 milliliter can, and then you could also buy bottles and cans, and there were different versions of Coke. But I basically wanted the classic Coke can. I've always liked classic Coke as a sort of, it's almost like a Warhol, you know, like a Warhol thing, like pop art.
Of course,
like
yeah.
Campbell's soup or something. So you have I had a whole shelf of them, and I still got a few, like now and again, like when the World Cup comes around, you get the FIFA limited edition Coke bottle. You know, it's glass. I still buy it.
You get the Christmas ones too.
Yeah, with the Santa. They're always
the Santa. Yeah.
Yeah, but I had to not collect them. I still get them because I see a Coke and it's got like a new, so I buy it because of the design more than anything.
Did you get one with your name on it?
So
remember that campaign they did?
Was a thing. Yeah, I think there was something like that. To get and they had blue. They had a blue can for a bit. Yeah, and green. That's what I always thought the best way to market Coke would be to change the color like that for a bit.
I don't know how good blue would be, because blue's Pepsi, right? And
yeah,
is it purple?
There's another one here. There's another drink that's blue. But I've definitely seen a blue Coke can and a green one.
Crazy.
Somewhere. And in Japan here they have these little miniature ones that are they're like 50 milliliters.
We have those, the mini cans for sure.
Yeah,
they're just little cans. What's that?
That's definitely that must be for collectors. Why would you buy that? Just to have.
Are you talking about like they're how many milliliters did you say?
They're very small. They're sort of an inch or two high.
Oh, but no, those got to be for collectors. Yeah. Why would anybody buy those?
I don't know. In Japan, they miniaturize everything. You can get sort of, you know, mini packs of, I guess, just like Snickers. But I've also seen here that in Snickers, they've brought out this kind of, you know, cost of living crisis version of Snickers. There's a kind of, instead of like a 6-pack of Snickers, they've got this like long, the Snickers are now square, and there's 5 of them in a pack. And they're like just about an inch by inch square of Snicker. And it says something on the packaging like, keep on living. So they're basically saying you can't afford Snickers, you know, because they're like £3.50 here for 5. But you can afford this, you know, smaller pack of them and keep on living.
And you can keep on living. That's wonderful. It's corporate branding, and that's a segue into our next topic. The corporate culture. Is it becoming the norm? Is corporate culture becoming what everyday life is for people not in the corporate world? Is corporate culture the next thing? Has it got like? Is it happening? What are your thoughts, Wasted?
I sort of remember a time when, you know, when you went to work, of course, you had to like mind your P's and Q's. You know, you couldn't talk the same way when you were in the company, and you know, you had to dress a certain way, you had to act a certain way. But then, obviously, when you're out of work, or just like saying whatever they wanted, being a bit more loose, you know, when they're in the pub. But now it seems like wherever you go, the corporate culture is kind of waiting for you. You can't really. They're kind of trying to mold you. Like even if you go to the pub, there'll be some kind of corporate, you know, maybe it's like people call it woke. So, you know, just like when you're watching football, it says, you know, kick racism out of football. That type of thing. It's everywhere, like in the pub, in the supermarket, wherever you go.
So, I don't know about where you are, but I know in Canada, when you get a new job, you have to go through sensitivity training and the corporate culture and the code of conduct. And that seems more and more now like it's spilling over into your personal life. That you are now a representative of the company and you are a representative 24/7. So, like you said, if you go to the pub with your coworkers after work. Now, I'm not going to say this is everybody, but this is what they teach you, and this is what they tell you, and this is what they expect of you. If you go to the pub with your coworkers after work, you're still representative of the company, and you still have to maintain the company's values, and you have to maintain the face of the company. So that means you're not going to do anything out of line. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to say anything that might be considered racy, racist, sexist, misogynist, chauvinistic, anything like that, because it can still come back to you. It can come back to you in work the next day. You can be reprimanded for it, which is insane for me to think of, because when I clock out at 4:00, I expect to be done. And if I don't do it very often because I don't drink anymore, but if I do go out with some coworkers, I would like to think that I can be more of myself than I am at work, but that's not necessarily the case, because somebody could take offense to what I said, and it can get back to my boss, and I can get in trouble. So essentially, they're killing the social life of their employee, or they're just pushing their corporate culture into my personal life. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, also social media, Facebook, you can't just, somebody can find what you said on Facebook and get you sacked. But also, it seems like the corporate culture is now actually the political agenda, as in they seem like the same two things. Like when you have like identity politics in the adverts or in commercials or on TV. It reminds me of like I mean, PC culture came from kind of communism and the Nazis, didn't it? That's where it kind of started. It's basically about like limiting the which language is growing. The kind of language of oppression or like the free speech. They tend to outlaw different words or thoughts using.
Or is it the language of oppression masquerading as free speech?
Yeah, now they're kind of pretending to be like humanitarians, but it's a form of control, isn't it?
Absolutely.
People's ideas.
Now, I came across a pretty interesting article. It's on this place called shrm.org, and it was talking about resumes with pronouns. And you would think in today's climate, in today's work climate, that pronouns would be considered to be an asset on your resume, but that's not necessarily the case. And I quote from the article: job applicants who include gender-neutral pronouns on their resumes are less likely to be contacted by employers, according to a recent study done by business.com. So they got some people to submit 2 phantom resumes with gender-ambiguous names to 180 unique job postings. The resumes were similar almost in every aspect, except the test resume included pronouns they, them, and did not, and the control did not include any. So the test resume with gender-neutral pronouns received 8% less interest for interviews than the other ones. So 64% of the companies say they're equal employers. 64, of the companies that they applied to claim to be equal employers, equal opportunity employers, but yet they look at the resumes and see these words on it and choose to go elsewhere.
Because
that could be. Go ahead.
Sort of like a backlash, not talking about too much, but they can sense a problem coming down the line.
I think that's what it is.
Even though they know it's kind of what's being pushed. It's being pushed so artificially, that it doesn't really fit in with real life.
So, it's quotes like this that that lead, and I this is going to reinforce your point. It's because of quotes like this from a company called Praxis Labs in New York City. You know, this woman, it's Michaela Castro. She wants to shed light on the struggles of non-binary individuals. And she's like, people underestimate the discrimination faced by non-binary people. The research is a glaring reminder how far we've yet to go to minimize bias and increase equity. And I think that reinforces what you were saying. It's I don't know if they can say it's a problem or they see this problem coming down the line, because that wouldn't be, well, you'd be called a bigot otherwise, right? But I think they realize that and recognize that, and they would rather just avoid that altogether by hiring somebody that doesn't include these words in their resume.
Yeah, I think because, you know, the sort of leftist propaganda is kind of heavy-handed, as in, I mean, people get up in arms about it, but I think on the left, it's like the principle of the propaganda or the principle that counts more than the actual reality of it. Like AOC will say, we're going to tax billionaires 80%, and everybody cheers. But in reality, you can't do that. And they can be very like pushy with all the pronouns and the gender politics and things like that. But it's not really based in reality. But on the left, it's kind of like go big or go home. You know, it's almost like as long as it's the right principle, they don't mind about the details of it. Whereas on the right, I say the propaganda is more about fear. You know, that's more their kind of way of using propaganda to get results. On the right, it's not about identity politics. It's more about get where it could be, but it's mostly based around, you know, fear. So they get everybody scared of something, and then that's how they do their propaganda. So it's on both sides. But I suppose
100%.
The extremes of it work for what they say is the uniparty. You know, the divisiveness of it means that they can kind of go down the middle with whatever they actually want.
So digging further into it, they got some hiring managers to comment on why they would look over a resume with pronouns. And some of the reasons were that they felt the applicant with gender-neutral pronouns was 7% less qualified for the job, 5% less positive about the resume with they or them pronouns, and 4% less likely to invite the applicant with gender-neutral pronouns for an interview. When asked how applicants can improve their resumes, one hiring manager expressed their disinterest in the drama that a person who thinks they are they, them brings with them, and adding that pronouns are off-putting and unnecessary. So everything ties into what you're saying, and it's an interesting article for the fact that these hiring managers are obviously left anonymous, and I think that adds a little bit of honesty to the answers that they gave. Angie Alvarez, who's an HR and recruitment manager at Next PR in Colorado Springs, she said that companies often exercise bias against applicants who offer more information about themselves in the recruitment process, including their pronouns and gender. So it's red flags, right? So it's the corporate culture, and are these applicants necessarily buying into their corporate culture or trying to sell them to the company so the company could buy into them, right? It's red flags, and you know, when it comes to unconscious or conscious bias, the less information recruiters have about the person, the more protected that person will be. So it basically stop talking so much in the interview. Just give the company what they want to hear, I guess, right?
Yeah, but that article seems like they're pinpointing this as a problem which they need to address, as in they need to go deeper into the, you know, they need to get more influence into companies. They're not saying this is actually reality, so we need to tone down our campaign, you know, for equal opportunities or whatever. they're actually saying we need to go in and bump it up and make this is a problem that we need to eradicate or tackle. Isn't that what's sort of happening with that article? That's the tone.
Yeah,
of
it sounds like that. I mean, she said when it. Sorry, I just lost my spot here. If work experience from your resume piques the company's interest, you can offer more holistic scope of yourself during the interview process. So, I don't know. It's tricky.
Yeah, it's just like it's kind of like it's a punt, isn't it? I mean, some people might like it and some people might not, depending on what if you put your sports trophies or your sports career on your CV, that might help you get like a job, or it might put somebody off. Everybody has like a sort of personal opinion, don't they? It depends on how much power they actually have. But they seem to be wanting to like give them more of a kind of advantage, don't they?
I think that's part of the Yeah.
I mean, just like with quotas and stuff, with different ethnic backgrounds. I think that's, I mean, in the UK that exists. They have to have a certain number. So people can go into interviews not knowing that it's basically don't have much chance because what they're really looking for is something else. Just like sometimes they hire internally, don't they? In a company,
True.
They don't tell you. They send out. They make you go in for an interview, but they're only hiring internally anyway. So it's like,
you have no chance for the job.
Yeah. But I mean, it seems like with that, moving on to the World Economic Forum.
My buddy Klaus Schwab.
Yeah,
I love talking about him.
They seem to be making sure they've made it their mission so that they can influence. They think they can influence the social or the real world with kind of a corporate culture. I mean, they on their website they basically talk about how this is their sort of goal or objective.
The World Economic Forum it's such an interesting topic because it's a global. It's the privatization. It's the coming together of private companies and public companies, right? And they make it seem like it's the way of the future and how beautiful and wonderful and excellent everything is going to be if we can just work together in these two things to come together and create this world of wonder and happiness. And I don't in some ways you look at the WEF and you're like, this is a good idea, but then you just like read more and you're just like, this is absolute nonsense. I can't get behind something like this that wants to create this harmonious world of private companies. Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, like on the face of it, it's the same. It's kind of like a humanitarian kind of feel to it. But the problems are, like when you read it, like it says, the hundreds most wealthiest economic entities in the world, 69 are now corporations and 31 are countries.
That's right.
So that means it's the corporations that have more power, basically by 70%. Than, I mean that's up from sort of 63 to 37 a year ago.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, and it says at this rate, within a generation, we'll be living in a world entirely dominated by giant corporations.
That's right.
And I noticed that, this is a side thing, but I noticed that in the US, they've changed some laws so that now corporate companies can actually be the name of a state. You have a state like Texas. They have changed the laws, so now it could be called, Google Texas. and
Really?
it could be sponsored and controlled by corporations. As in, it is possible now. So they've changed some laws where corporations are now allowed to run states. Maybe won't ever happen for like 10, 20, 30 years, but the law has been changed, so it's possible.
Well, that's interesting. I have not heard that. There's a Republic candidate who's running. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy, and he took aim at some of America's biggest money managers and corporations, saying that, like, so he pointed out BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, and he called them a cartel, and he said they're the most powerful cartel in human history, and that the big three, as he called them, like then this is what you were getting at. They hold significant shareholder rights in quite a few, if like the majority of the S&P 500 companies, which are the Fortune 500 companies, right? And then, they use your money to foist ESG agendas onto corporate boards. So they're voting for like racial equity audits and Scope 3 emission caps, and they don't advance your best financial interests, but they make them stinking rich, right?
Yeah, well, they're basically, you can sort of see them as the sort of funding arm of the World Economic Forum. As in, if you follow the World Economic Forum guidelines, which is what we're talking about with these companies, doing their woke adverts, is that you will then get a cut of this ESG money, which comes from, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. But Vanguard and State Street own parts of each other. So
they all do.
So they actually own almost 80-90% of everything.
Everything.
And remember that sort of Project Veritas guy, executive, got caught out, and he was saying that, they basically, firstly, that money isn't just like from investors, it's actually straight from the Fed, the BlackRock money. So basically just freshly printed money that they use. But yeah, that guy, the Project Veritas guy got caught out. He was saying that, that BlackRock funds the war, because he wants to increase the price of grain. So, like those investment companies will influence the political kind of system so that the war is more likely, and they get the war in Ukraine, say, that will put up the price of grain, which they have already invested in.
That's right.
So he got caught on camera saying that this is, war is good for business. He was almost
he's not the first politician or corporate CEO to make comments like that about war, right? It's throughout history. I don't want to say history, but like modern history. People always say that.
Even 9/11 was
exactly
a stock market cash grab or something.
Sure. I guess that's what you get when you own 88% of like basically everything, right? You just run the show, right? And they say what they want and they do what they want, right? And we're just pawns in their game. That's the corporate culture coming into everyday life now, is that this is the way it is, and they're going to get rich and we're not. And we're basically living in a version of medieval times, right? Like you got the king and his men, and they're all eating and drinking and having a feast while we're all out here struggling to make ends meet, right? Or am I way off on this?
Yeah, well, you can. I always think of it like it's like a fascist, like Mussolini. Where the corporations are kind of, it's basically corporate fascism, as in the corporations are controlling it. But I guess, like with Mussolini, it's corporatism, where it's kind of like an accepted thing that the corporations are the state. Whereas we're living in more of a sort of, corporate ocracy or something, where they're just buying influence and
it's
influencing it. But it's weird that with all the Blackrock kind of stuff, that they still need the World Economic Forum and the ESG funding to get their message through. So, the World Economic Forum message, they still need to put it through this corporate culture and kind of in a clandestine way, or a sort of, it's not an underhand way. Everybody knows it's happening, but it's very sort of like it's sort of the undercurrent everywhere you go. And they need that. But it's a kind of fashion.
in a way. I mean, there's no doubt. In a way, for sure, it is. And
like when the Russell Brand gets his demonetized before anything's really proved, that's basically, and Burger King takes the ads off his Rumble channel to kind of close him down, and then the British government go through Ofcom, which is like a watchdog, to try and have the owners of Rumble become criminals and arrested if they ever enter the UK. You're basically you're using kind of you're using the revenue streams of kind of companies and corporations to silence people. It's basically Mussolini style.
So let's talk about Russell Brand for a second, because it's an interesting topic. Now, to be honest, since everything came out about him, and we're probably going back about 3 weeks now, we're in the middle of October now, and I think this came out the last week of September. And he was accused of some pretty serious stuff. I mean, he was accused of raping and sexually assaulting 4 women. One of them as young as 16 years old. And he was also, how should I say it, accused of grooming as well, and giving these girls, reasons to their parents or stories to their parents to tell them, right? So pretty serious accusations, but they're just that. They're accusations. Now, have you kept up on the story? Because it kind of just went away.
Yeah, because he hasn't. Well, I think the first thing is just what from the different news sources, what you're saying it's a little bit I don't know, the word conflating it all together, but he wasn't accused of raping and sexually assaulting 4 women, and one of them was 16 years old. He was accused of raping 1, which was that was a genuine, maybe a more genuine accusation. So the other 3, they're sexual assault. And then on the side of that was the 16-year-old who he basically dated her, and the BBC or whatever told him, don't go out in public. And she said he was emotionally abusive. But the key point is that they didn't go to the police at the time, 10, 20 years ago.
Okay.
But they didn't even go to the police now. The media and the BBC or Channel 4 went to them.
So I heard a lot about that. Okay, so that makes sense now, because
the main point is that the theory is that the BBC or the media companies are basically going after him now to basically stop any kind of lawsuits against them in the future.
So it's a witch hunt.
Yeah,
sounds to me like it's a witch hunt.
Because all the evidence that because they didn't go to the police and they went through the media, all that, the BBC can't go to trial anymore, really. Most of the police and people involved on that level and lawyers say, how do you take this to court now? You can't. So in a way, it's weirdly protecting him. But they're also, the other side of it, they don't really like what he's saying. So it's kind of complicated.
Not many people do, because first off, he's a smart guy. He's a very intelligent man. I follow him on Rumble, and I listen to his show sometimes. I do enjoy him. And when these accusations came out, as much with anything these days, I take it with a grain of salt, because I know it's just filled with half-truths. And the stuff that's presented to me is is severely skewed to one or a few public interest groups. So when I saw this and when I read this to you, I read this, what I was reading to you about him was from the New York Post, and they're known to sensationalize stuff. Yes, they are. And you quickly corrected me on, I read verbatim from this article. And if a person like me doesn't know anything about the story, I read this, I immediately think that this guy's a scumbag without knowing anything else. And you, as soon as I told you, you corrected almost everything that was put into this story. Now, like I said, it's filled with half-truths.
I think it's loose. It's like a loose generalization.
Absolutely. That's what I mean by half-truths. They're not necessarily lying, but they're not telling the truth.
I've seen worse examples of it in this case. It's just some of them are just like, he's accused of raping 4, and including a 16-year-old, just not even bothering trying. But I think,
right.
Yeah, the thing is with him is that obviously he is in a different era, in the sort of new lad era in the UK. So the BBC, encouraged him and paid him to develop this image. So that's the part of the problem is a lot of his behavior was him playing a character, but he also was, like you said, a sort of sex addict. And if you watched all those clips, on MSNBC, it seems like women liked him. So I don't think he's like the most gentlemanly person ever, and he's maybe got into the role as well. And he could have stepped over the line in LA, yeah. But it's interesting that the most solid kind of accusation comes from America, and they're the ones that don't really like what he's saying the most. So yeah, he was definitely paid by the BBC and all these maybe Channel 4 to play that role, to be that kind of sort of new lad. And he's admitted it himself that he's playing a character, as in, he wanted to be successful, and then, what is the character that's British? British. It's basically he said he's a combination of Monty Python, English rock and roll, and the Victorian era, And you see it on the Rumble channel that he's quite serious, isn't he? And he talks with his hands quite a lot. So he's kind of autistic. He's talking with his hands a lot, and he's much more serious. But now and again, if he's with Tucker or whatever, suddenly he breaks into the old kind of, it's almost like Johnny Depp's Pirate. He starts talking right. Kind of weird, like a British eccentric sex pervert voice or something. It's an act that he does. So it's very confusing and hard to know what he actually did. But, if he's on piles of drugs, and he was like in movies, wasn't he? At the time that these things were happening, he was like on piles of drugs. And
he'll be the first to admit that, right?
Yeah. I mean, he admits to like almost sleeping with 5 women a day.
Yeah.
At the height for 5 or 6 years. And then when you see the clips, you can see how it's like wherever he goes, he's that character. He goes into the morning breakfast show, and they brought in like 5 single women for him to. It was just a different time, a bit like Howard Stern.
Sounds like it. It sounds a lot like Howard Stern. Yeah, you're right. Very much so. It's funny you say Howard Stern, because I was on, I believe it was Reddit the other day, and I follow the subreddit Howard Stern. This is totally going off base, but I was a big fan of Howard Stern back in the day. I really liked him, and I listened. I got his show over the radio for free, whatever, and I really enjoyed listening to his show. It's very different now. I have a Sirius subscription now, and I've turned on his show recently, and it's very different. I don't want to say it's better or worse, but it's just very different. But going back to Stern's heyday, and I would say that's probably the late 80s, early 90s. That's even a little early for me, but you can still get the clips on Reddit. And listening to him, man, he pushed the envelope, man. Like, he pushed the envelope a lot, and he got away with a lot of stuff that other people did not get away with. And I think that set I don't know if I want to say it set up the world the way it is now in terms of like media, right? But I think he had a huge influence on it, and I think we got to a point where it went absolutely bonkers, and I think we're correcting now, and we're overcorrecting, and you know, that produces guys like Russell Brand. Am I making any sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. But it's the same. The same thing. It's like the New Lad was a kind of a reaction in the UK to all the sort of feminism and stuff.
Right.
Back in the 90s. But those characters, you see, the problem with Russell Brand. See, Howard Stern was like that then, and that was a wild and crazy time, as he says. But now he's like super woke and doesn't go against the establishment at all and toes the line. You know, for COVID, you know, you could say the same thing about Guns N' Roses. You know, they could possibly have some problems. Motley Crue, but they're kind of not threatening. Russell Brand's problem is that he's not just doing that sort of woke kind of. If he was still, the thing is, he left Hollywood, or I don't know if he failed or whether he just kind of got out of it. But yeah, he's kind of like Dudley Moore in the, you know, Arthur. He played Arthur, didn't he? Russell Brand. He played Arthur, but he's the same kind of level of success and the same kind of character. But once you leave Hollywood, they're not going to protect you anymore. Like if he'd have stayed married to Katy Perry and they just go around being, you know, talking about nothing and maybe supporting vaccines, they wouldn't like mount this kind of attack on him. But he's just doing completely opposite. He's kind of like another version of Alex Jones. You know, Rogan, he was on Rogan and Rogan was praising him, saying, keep going, you know, you're really good at this, you know. They don't even like Rogan.
He is though. I mean, he's very, in my opinion at least, he's very likable and he's very enjoyable. His show is good and he's not dumb. So it makes for an interesting show. And whether or not that's an act or whether or not that's him, I don't know. Does it really matter? Because it's entertainment.
That's another point to it. Yeah. That some people say that since that he, you know, maybe he broke up with Katy Perry at that time is because he raped somebody, say, and he had to leave Hollywood, and they protected him for a certain amount of time. But when he, you know, now that he's getting problematic, they've brought it back to get him.
Could be. I mean, it could be. You never. It's Hollywood, man. Like they eat their own, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what's happening. It's logical. It's plausible.
Yeah, and he's also British, so it's not like there's a lot of Americans just like don't like it. You know? That's
right.
So yeah, he definitely has a bit of a problem. Like if he'd have just stayed in the become woke, like say what's it called?
Go woke, go woke, get broke.
Yeah, but if he'd have become more like Howard Stern isn't doing that well anymore, is he? I mean, he's got a good, like, stable job, but people don't like think his show is good anymore. But if Russell Brand had become like him, he'd probably be kind of, they wouldn't be that bothered about it. Maybe he just laid low.
I
because
think
he's making all this noise.
I think people still like Howard Stern. I mean, like I said, I'm on his Reddit and I follow him, and I mean, there's a lot of detractors on there, but there's a lot of people that still listen to his show religiously. I mean, on Sirius, they listen to every day, and I think people still like him. But it's not the same. Like you said, it's not the same at all. He's very, like, what did you say? You toe the line. That's a perfect analogy of how he does his show now. He toes the line, and he's very. No, it's sad, but anyway, that's my opinion.
But he's moved with the times. That's the main thing.
Yes, he has. Absolutely. He doesn't need to push the needle anymore.
Russell Brand sort of kept pushing the needle, but in a different way.
Yeah. I will like to add though one thing, as a reminder that as of today, Russell Brand still hasn't been charged of any crime. So I just wanted to say that because
he's demonetized. This is the fascistic part of it. He's demonetized before he's found guilty. So he's like guilty. He's guilty until proven innocent, and this is the big problem.
Now, I was under the impression that it was YouTube, because he has 6.6 million subscribers on YouTube, and his Rumble numbers are about a third of that. So
he's got 30 million followers overall, and it's much bigger than any like news show in America. That's the numbers are like 30 million when you combine the two. So yeah,
right,
it started again on Rumble. But the thing is, the hypocritical thing is that on YouTube, I think he's been demonetized, but the views, anybody viewing his videos, the YouTube videos are still there, and anybody views them. Now the advertising money is going to YouTube. So they're basically stolen money. That's
so ridiculous.
And they're not even shutting down the content.
They're just not paying him.
They're just ruining him. They're canceling him and keeping his money. Sort of.
I don't agree with that, but that's just the way shit is now.
I don't think anybody agrees with it. It's just one guy, isn't it? How if they want to get rid of him, they can, but they can't. Like using the British government sending a letter to Rumble to make making the Rumble owners criminals. That if they entered the UK, they would be arrested as domestic terrorists. I don't think that's going to have gone through in a real way, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get Rumble to close him down. So it's all about shutting down his revenue. But before he's been proven guilty. And he can't be proven guilty because it's just such a hard thing to do, to prove that. And there's only really one solid case. And it's kind of like you'd assume it's kind of like an Instagram model.
Right.
She has the story, and it's quite a graphic story that she tells about what happened. Really. But
I have not heard it.
It's not, you could interpret it. It could have just be them having sex on the floor,
So let me throw this out here. So at the beginning when we started talking about Russell Brand, you said that it wasn't the police that went after him. It was the media that went to the women.
Yeah.
And I think you had said a bit later, that he had claimed that he was having sex with 6 women a day. So 6 women a day times 7, that's 42. 42 times 52, so that's what, 2,000? So just over 2,000 women a year, we'll say, for argument's sake. So that's 2,000. What's that?
For 5 or 6 years, I think.
Okay, so that's
heyday.
So let's say between 10 and 13,000 women. We'll go with that. So they went after 10 to 13,000 women. Do you think that of that number, it wasn't? They cherry picked the ones that fit their story. I mean,
but also, because there's a woman coming out, a girl and there are other women who've had good experiences with him. And in the Channel 4 documentary, they don't put any of that in. There's no balance. Right. It was basically just a hit piece. But yeah, 20,000 women, and only 4 of them had a bad experience with him.
And that's what they're focusing on, the 4 out of 20,000.
Yeah, and the odds go up, don't they, with the more. So it's possible. It's possible they cross the line. But it's very hard to prove. Yeah. But he is a bit like Hansi, and you've got all the on NBC or on different shows like in Australia. He was flirting with all the, but it's on TV. He's kind of kind of joking around on set with the sort of these women who obviously like him, and he's using some kind of like pickup, eye contact and flirting with them, until they kind of crumble. And then he kind of goes over, and instead of just sitting back like normal people and joking, he does something a little bit more physical, doesn't he?
Right. Right.
Have you seen the one where he's driving around in a golf buggy with that sort of presenter? And she loves it. And at the end, he's basically he's almost kissing her and like undoing her bra. And she's loving it. Yeah, he's like picking at her bra. This is surrounded by people, and he's playing that sort of character. And, you know, they drive around this Hollywood set and bumping into things. And, you know, and she loves it. You know, and she's on TV saying that was just Russell being Russell, you know?
Right. Right.
So, but then there's a more, that's all in plain sight. But maybe when you're in clubs and bars and pubs, who knows?
So, yeah, go on.
No, it's difficult to say. I mean, we don't know, do we?
No, we have no idea.
We just talked an hour about it, but we have no idea.
So there's getting back to our corporate culture and where we got sidetracked a little bit, but there's a British coffee chain owned by the Coca-Cola company called Costa Coffee. Do you know of Costa Coffee? Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, in the UK, definitely Costas everywhere, and I think in China as well.
Okay. People
say that it's sort of slightly, you know, if you get bored of that particular Starbucks style coffee,
yeah,
Costa has a bit more of a sort of, I think has more of an Italian. There's also Cafe Nero, which is more like Italian style coffee. But
okay.
Costa coffee is a little bit more kind of gourmet coffee than Starbucks is a bit sludgy, isn't it?
So they had, I'm pretty sure it must be the same company. In where I am, they had a bunch. They're not here anymore. They pulled out, but they were like coffee machines, and it's not like the coffee dispenser machines you'd find in like a cafeteria. It was good coffee, and it made a good cup of coffee, and you put your $2 in the machine and made it. It was better than going to Starbucks. The coffee was tasty. Anyway, this company, they're catching some flack right now, some backlash, because they've made an advertisement that features a transgender man with scars on his chest after an apparent double mastectomy, and it shows a surfer with a large pink lips and blue hair, and he's sipping on a Costa coffee cup to go, right? So obviously now there's a fury of criticism, and there's calls for boycotts. Much like the push was to cancel Bud Light over its tie, like with transgender and for Dylan Mulvaney, you know, and it's a social media war now, and that I think that's an aspect or a side that we didn't really get into tonight, was the whole social media side of the corporate culture and the canceling and the other side of canceling, where they're going to cancel the canceller, and it's nonsense. But you just go down and it's a list of quotes, you know, like, why is a coffee chain pushing sex change surgeries on customers that just want to drink coffee? You know, Costa Coffee deserves the full Bud Light treatment for glorifying women and girls cutting their breasts off in the name of gender identity. Or, this is the sickest ad campaign in the history of marketing. Stop female breast and genital mutilation. It just goes on and on, right? And it drums like it's the old saying that, you know, no, there's no such thing as bad publicity, right?
Yeah, there's that element to it. So this is just if the country is split 50-50 between left and right, then it kind of like maybe, you know, it boosts sales of, you know, if Costa Coffee, especially in the UK, I don't know if this is in America, but Costa Coffee is like quite popular in the UK. So, you know, and people are pretty woke. I mean, the level of wokeness in the UK is maybe twice that of in the US, like on a day-to-day basis. The BBC is just like, you know, broadcasting beaming wokeism into your living room. Nobody really argues with it. So that particular ad made everybody just go, sure, you know, that sounds like that's a good cause, you know, got to help them. But
That's right.
It just goes back to the World Economic Forum. This is how they're going through because they're probably going to get some ESG money for that. That's what as an example. If they do the surfer with the tits cut off trans thing, then they probably get revenue from this sort of ESG fund from the government. And
That's right.
Kind of covers them for any losses. So they get to push these political ideas without actually losing money. Same thing happens with movies that have like the woke agenda. Everybody say, go woke, go broke. But they don't go broke because they get funded on the sort of behind the scenes for doing what they're doing. So
Absolutely.
It's kind of like a win-win. But I mean, it has a limited creative future.
Well, of course.
All you do is follow
maximizing the profits right now. Like just this past week, the New York Times. Do you remember the days when the New York Times was like a reputable newspaper and it was very respected? And if you were reading the New York Times, you were a well-educated person, blah, 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 blah. Well, this week they were bashed for publishing an article ranking the 5 best clitoral vibrators. But in the whole article, they never mentioned the word woman unless it was part of the vibrator's name. Instead, the piece said that the vibrators were tested on people with vulvas. So the CEO of tampon maker August, she was also brought to the attention because she was calling her customers menstruators instead of women, and she claimed that tampons could be gender inclusive. It's the woke ideology going right here too, right? And it's coming over into the corporate culture, and it's like you said, like it's going to drum up. I've never heard of. Obviously, I'm a man, so I've never heard of this tampon maker August, but now I know it, right? And for some weird reason, I know it now, and I'll probably recognize it now. Do you know what I mean? So it's so like you said, they might get canceled here, and they might get, but it also might drum up sales. But they're also going to probably get some of that ESG money. So who's winning and who's losing here?
Yeah, if you make it into a little sort of woke story that makes the newspaper, it's like free advertising.
100%.
If you just dabble with this idea. I think that's what probably Bud Light was doing. They've got a certain group of people already, like different types of marketing. You can either like keep going after the people you've already convinced to just keep, but you can also like maybe draw a few other people in. From the other side, maybe turn Bud Light into sort of, drunk by woke.
Yeah.
So you get more sales overall in the long term. But if there's a huge backlash, then that can cause a problem, which I think it did, isn't it?
So another example. This was just this week. As you know, I'm a big hockey fan, and the NHL started this week. And oddly enough, it was weird timing for the NHL to do this, but because it's their first week and they've got a new superstar in the league and blah, 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 blah. They're coming up with their first game, and they decided to they banned Pride tape. So when you tape up your hockey stick, some of the players would, in the past number of years, they've taped up their hockey stick with Pride tape, so rainbow tape, right? So the NHL has now banned that. They're not allowed. It has to be solid color, usually black or white. So, and of course, there's a side of the community that is very upset with this, saying they're going in the wrong direction. That their hockey, because their slogan is hockey is for everyone. Their hockey isn't for everyone. It's why are they doing this? Is this the dark ages? Blah, 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 blah. So my opinion on it is, like, it's strange because I don't have a problem with the initiatives. I don't have a problem with people. I don't have a problem with people being who they want to be or who they are. But I do have a problem with forcing these on people, and it upset a lot of people. So I think they just said, okay, enough is enough. We're not going to do any initiatives anymore. So along with banning the Pride tape, they banned all theme nights. So that goes for the military, that goes for Pride, that goes for Indigenous. So they all had jerseys and stuff. And of course, this ban was extended to the tape that they use on their sticks too. So did the NHL ban this because the groups behind these initiatives went too far and were too loud and were too boisterous, or is the NHL going backwards and they're being non-inclusive of everybody? It's hard to tell.
The same thing happened with the England football team, or there was a match the other day, and they play at Wembley Stadium, and there's this kind of Wembley Stadium has an arch that goes over the top, and for the Ukraine war, they lit it up in yellow and blue for one of the games, but this time for Israel, they decided not to, and the players are just wearing like black armbands or something. So they backed away from this sort of more overt stance, because a lot of the players are actually more on the other side, like Muslim things. So it's a bit, with the Israel and Palestine. I think that it's a bit more of a diverse. Maybe they're shying away from, you don't want terrorists going into the, football game. So you want to sort of downplay this. So, basically they just don't want any trouble. They want to make money. But I actually noticed one story. I think I lost it now. But that the leader of the ESG system, I've forgotten what his name is. But anyway, the ESG guy, he's saying that Larry Fink. He's basically saying that they've announced that they won't be using the term ESG anymore. They won't be using the term. They won't be using the term ESG anymore.
Why not?
Because they've been kind of caught out by it. So everybody knows about it now. So he was speaking at the Aspen Festival of Ideas. Blackrock CEO Larry Fink announced he'd no longer be using the term ESG. So this will be a huge hit to the ESG industry, not simply because BlackRock is the world's largest asset management company, because it was the pioneer in promoting ESG investment. So maybe they are maybe the ESG, the investment or assets companies, management companies are kind of pulling out a little bit of this kind of, so maybe that you won't be seeing as much in the future. But I think what they'll do is they'll say that they're doing that and then divert it and call it something else.
Well, I mean, they're probably not hiring people that put pronouns on their resumes, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe it's just reached a fever pitch.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at.
There has been a certain amount of backlash and a certain amount of failures. With the, Bud Light was a failure.
Yeah.
That campaign didn't work out, and then, you don't want your football matches turning into sort of, terror threats.
Exactly.
So there's a sort of line that they need to walk.
I don't want to go to a football match and have a political rally breakout. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and you don't want to feel like by going to that game you are supporting something that you don't necessarily support, and you could get hurt because of it.
That's right.
So that everyday life is like every decision you make and everything you say becomes like a threat to you. So maybe people, they're kind of backing off it a little bit, but it's still there in the background.
Maybe, just maybe, that they're backing off and they're going to let people think for themselves and not be influenced by social media, not be influenced by CNN, not be influenced by corporate branding. I don't know. Just let's step back and not be directly involved in everything and every aspect of somebody's life. I don't know. Yeah. I would like to see it.
So there's probably more that they've just they've done a bit of social engineering now for a bit, changed a lot of things. They've been kind of called out for it, and now they're back off for a bit.
Now they're going to back off. Yeah. Well, I'd like to see it. We've reached our time here though for Tonight Wasted, and I think we had a good conversation as always. I always like this little rebuttal at the end that we do and talk about how good our show was. I think we had a good show tonight. It was good to talk to you again. It's been too long, and the last time we were talking, we were doing the preview episode of Shit Radio, which is going to come back. I talked to Brasky, and he's getting things taken care of in the background and getting everything ready to go. Hopefully that comes up soon. I would like to say thank you to the listeners that listened to Shit Radio and gave the positive feedback. I got some pretty good feedback from some people on that inaugural episode. So thank you, and keep listening. I'm glad that we can make you smile with Shit Radio, and hopefully with this show we can provide a little bit more serious side of things, at least on the surface. But yeah, look for Shit Radio again. It will be happening. An episode should be popping up anytime soon. How's the Wasted Show going?
I've got I think I put up a new episode about this monkey that got drunk after escaping from a zoo or something. And,
I love it.
And there's a big changes that Broski has his own show now. He's got his first episode out. It's called Broski's Sunday Service, because I think he's got a strong opinion, point of view, and he's been pretty consistent with his episodes. So I think it gets confusing with me introducing a show like popping beer cans and like it's a Wasted Show, and then he starts talking about more serious stuff, and they probably think that it's me, but it's not. So I think it's better to separate the two. So,
Broski's show. We should get him on here to talk about it. Is it a religious show? I would imagine it is.
It's partly. He tackles all the issues, but it's from his own point of view and his Christian. Like he reads, parts of the Bible and things, and puts it all together with the issues of the day or the issues that he's talking about.
Nice.
And it's often about aliens, and he did an episode about demons and aliens and reptilians. And one of the episodes, I think his best episode, is the alien face peelers invading Peru. That's on YouTube as well. So he's sort of a mixture of religious stuff and aliens and demons and reptilians.
I love it.
Plus,
I
think it's good. It's interesting to listen to. It's a good show, I think.
Nice. Oh, that's great. So it's called the Borky Show?
Broski's Sunday Service. And
Broski's Sunday Service.
And we try to get up on Sunday night.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. All right, so look for that on YouTube. And
on Rumble. It's
perfect.
Part of the Wasted Show, under the Wasted Show channel, but he's just started his own show. So he's got episode number 1 is up.
Perfect. I love it. I'll have a listen. I'll look for it. We should reach out to Broski too, see if he wants to come on and talk about his show. That would be ideal. With that being said, keeping up with the Wasted Show, and once again, thanks for listening, everybody. Check us out on basically every platform. Check us out on Apple. If you are, please hit like and subscribe. That helps us there. Google, of course. Hey, thanks to the people that are listening on Castbox, of all the places. We have a few subscribers, and we don't have a lot of listens, but it's unexpected. It was unexpected when I did see the numbers, so thank you. And of course, YouTube and Spotify, those are the two big ones for us. So hit like and subscribe to the No Name Pod with me and Wasted, and we'll get another show out as soon as we can. And this is going to be us saying goodbye. Have a good night.
Adios.